Today's is the 100th reading in this series. Some said it couldn't be done. More said it oughtn't to be done. I've even concocted a special mix of vaguely music-like sound from free samples of a genre apparently known as trance, my lud. My thinking was that the poems I'm reading in this anniversary session are dark and uncomfortable, and I felt that sandwiching them between more serene snippets would leave listeners unprepared, unbraced. These are more poems from Sophie Baker's recommendations. The first is The Spike by Catherine Maris. It's cleverly constructed to allow the reader to imagine things are worse than they turn out to be towards the end. The sense of relief is fleeting, however, and is utterly crushed at the very end. It's often the people you least expect. Maris is an American poet, born on Long Island, now living in London. The second poem is Tramp in Flames by Paul Farley, whose poem Heron I read in the 97th recording. It's an unflinchingly powerful poem. I'm often reminded of Peter Bruegel's painting of the Fall of Icarus, in which horrific human events can go unnoticed in a wider view of things. Farley is certainly paying intense attention here, but there's something in his observation that confirms Bruegel's point about detachment. The third and final poem is Dead Girls by Kim Addonizio, whose poem News I read in the 98th recording. It's a telling reminder to those of us with 3 scouting badges stitched to our sleeves for progress in feminism that we've no grounds for complacency. Prurience is not vanquished. Being a spectator doesn't absolve you of complicity, even if you have paid for your seat. The summer day the spike went into my... The summer day the spike went into my brother's head, as such things happened in the 20th century, when the Freudian death drive was often accessed out of boredom. I learned from my doctor parents that scalps bleed profusely. 20 years later, when Theodore and Cosima jumped on little Robert's bed, and Theodore fell off, and his white blonde head turned red, I said, "Scalps bleed profusely." And Rachel, his mum, thanked me for my composure. Robert's mum, Emily, who had wanted to be a jazz singer or actress and who always introduced me as a poetess, said she knew a couple who had a second child because their friend's child died in a freak accident. But back to the summer day the spike grazed my brother's scalp. I slept beside him in his racing car bed, and my father woke me and slapped my face, thinking, I assume, of sex, whereas I was already thinking about death. Tramp in Flames. Some similes act like heat shields for re-entry to reality. A tramp in flames on the floor. We can say, flame on, to invoke the human torch from the Fantastic Four. We can switch to art and imagine Dali at this latitude doing CCTV surrealism. We could compare him to a protest monk sat up the way he is. We could force the lock of memory. At the crematorium, my uncle said the burning bodies rose like Draculas from their boxes. But his layers burn brightly, and the salts locked in his hems give off the colours of Roman candle, and the smell is like a foot and mouth pyre in the middle of the city he was born in. And the bin bags melt and fuse him to the pavement, and a pool forms like the way he wet himself, sat on the school floor 40 years before. And then the hand goes up. The hand goes up. Dead Girls. Show up often in the movies, face down in the weeds beside the highway. Kids find them by the river or in the woods, under leaves, one pink-nailed hand thrust up. Detectives stand over them in studio apartments, or lift their photos off pianos in the houses they almost grew up in. A dead girl can kick a movie into gear, better than a saloon brawl, better than a factory explosion, just by lying there. Anyone can play her. Any child off the street can be hog-tied and dumped from a van, or strangled blue in a kitchen, a bathroom, an alley, a school. That's the beauty of a dead girl. Even a plain one who feels worthless as a clod of dirt, broken by the sorrow of gazing all day at a fashion magazine, can be made whole, redeemed by what she finally can't help being, the centre of attention, the special, desirable, dead girl.